Robin, we are very happy to have you here. You're predicting a future where the world will be ruled by robots. What assumptions did you make to come to this conclusion?
One, eventually machines will be better than humans at pretty much everything. Two, the kind of machine that will first be better than humans is a particular kind called a brain emulation, or M for short. That's a kind of robot that's very human-like. You take a particular human brain and you make a computer model of that particular brain based on a detailed scan of that brain's cells and connections. There's a robot that's as smart and even smarter than humans. It's cheap and it replaces people. And I assume, as economists usually do, that there's a supply and demand describes. That is, lots of buyers and sellers for everything, relatively low regulation. And then, rather than an assumption, I make focus choices. I choose to focus only on this next era when M's show up, and the early M era, and not on the entire future after that.
And what will these M's look like? Will they be of flesh and blood? What will they be doing all day?
Well, it depends on who's looking. So they are sitting in big server racks, running on computers, but they see themselves in virtual reality. So most of them are sitting at a virtual desk in virtual reality doing an office job. And in that environment, they're in a beautiful world. Their bodies are beautiful. They look and feel relatively human. But if you actually looked at where their brain was really sitting, it's in a huge server rack in a dense city with tall, cooling pipes and energy things and things like that. So now some of them would work in the physical reality, and for them, they would see whatever body they needed to see to do their job. It doesn't have to look that human-like. But most of them see beautiful bodies in virtual reality.
Will they be in power? Will they be stronger than normal humans?
So to say that robots rule the earth, there are different meanings of rule. So if you're a retiree in our world and living off of your savings, there's a sense in which you have power in our world. You get to spend some of our resources in your direction. But there's another sense in which you don't have power. You're not in the details running things, deciding which particular things happen. So when the age of M happens, plausibly humans can retain the power of owning most of the wealth in this world and deciding where it gets spent, but they must retire and be pushed off to the side, and they're not in the center of action, and they're not making the key decisions. They're not deciding which firms produce which products and what places and which technologies are adapted and changed where. Mostly those details are being decided by the M's.
So if I understand you correctly, us normal humans, we won't participate in the democracy we have today?
The typical emulations runs roughly 1,000 times human speed. That means in a month they experience a century. So a lot happens in that month. That's the time in which it takes their economy to double. So enormous number of key decisions are being made over that month, and it's just not feasible to have humans get involved in most of those decisions. So if humans are running things from a distance via spending their retirement savings and voting, it has to be on the highest level, crudest decisions that are slowly changing parameters.
And what is it normal humans, like biological humans, will be doing all day?
The entire age of M probably only lasts a year or two, and then something else happens. So there isn't much time for cultural change. All of a sudden, all the humans lose their jobs, and then collectively, humans get rich fast. That is, the world economy doubles every month, and human wealth doubles every month. We already know what happens to people in our world when they get rich all of a sudden, when they're young, and when they can do a lot of things. Now, perhaps over centuries of cultural change, they would end up becoming different if they never had any work, but there's not enough time in the age for that to happen.
This sounds pretty much like science fiction, doesn't it? What are the probabilities of these changes to happen?
If you understood how much change has passed in the last 3 million years, you should expect enormous change to happen in the future. And how much change happens depends on how fast change is. So since change has been accelerating, you should expect more change in a shorter time in the future. So regardless of whether you believe my particular scenario, you should expect a lot of change Now, if you think there's no way robots will ever be smarter than people, no matter how much development happens, then you should discount it for that. But if you think we will eventually have robots as smart and smarter than people, and that this is one of the plausible paths, then you got to say this is a plausible thing that could happen.